Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us here. I'm sat on the sofa today with Tony Dunkerley. Thank
Hello.
you so much for chatting to us. Tony works for Illustro Consultancy, and tell us a little bit about what you do, because it's quite interesting.
Sure. So I'm a former police detective, and what I do now is I have a consulting company that basically works with anti-human trafficking programs. So generally we train police, law enforcement in the UK and overseas, sometimes in high-risk countries or fragile states where their law enforcement capacity is quite low. So we go in and train them there on how to investigate human trafficking and people smuggling. And then we also work with private businesses as well, because there's something called modern slavery in supply chains, so large global supply chains who source their materials or products from often overseas. Some of those people, if not a lot, are actually held in what's termed modern slavery. It's about companies realising the risks in themselves as well. So yeah, we work with those two things.
So I'm already questioning why you're here in the UK, because obviously slavery to me, I'm just saying it how it is. I might come across as really thick now, but slavery to me, I'm not thinking you have a lot of work in the UK.
Well, you're not the first person to say that.
Yeah.
To put it in perspective, okay, so when it was a transatlantic slave trade, when we think of the people that were taken from Africa over to the Americas, that was about 12 million people that were recorded during that time of that process happening. Okay, today the global average we think is around 42 million people currently held in what's termed modern slavery. Okay.
That's
and I'm afraid the
incredible.
UK is no exception. Every country has modern slavery.
Yeah.
So to give an example, in 2018 we had 6,993 people, so nearly 7,000 people were identified in the UK alone as potential victims of human trafficking and modern slavery.
That is a really horrific statistic. And so I guess the next question has to be, what is modern slavery? You know, that statistic's really high. I'm really shocked, and I'm sure people watching will be as well. So tell us.
What is it?
What is it?
No, sure. So we're starting to hear this term modern slavery more and more now. Modern slavery is what's used as an umbrella term. So it's a term that we use for basically human trafficking that you may have heard of, and forced labour and sexual exploitation. So modern slavery is the umbrella term, but when we look at human trafficking is actually the movement of people by use of deception and fraud, abduction and other means to a location where they will then be exploited. That's what human trafficking is. And the kinds of exploitation are some things that I mentioned: sexual exploitation, forced labour, and also other things like organ harvesting and other horrible things as well that also happen. So last year in the UK we had, I think it was 2 people that were trafficked for the purpose of organ harvesting, and that was identified in the UK. So it does happen here.
Yeah. Okay. So this is your area of work, and recently you've been doing some more work with teens and with children. So how does this affect our children, and how is what can we do? Because obviously now, listening to those statistics, you suddenly think, oh my God, I need to find out a little bit more about this, and how could it affect our kids and people in our lives?
No, of course. Well, some of the cases I personally dealt with when I was a police officer, and others that I see when I work with other police and law enforcement from across the world, is a lot of the time the way that especially children are contacted by either groomers or traffickers in the first instance is by online social media. If we look at the cases of online grooming that were recorded last year in the UK alone for England and Wales, there was over 3,000 recorded online grooming offences. About 2,000 of those were girls aged between 12 to 15, so we're looking around the 70% mark, and around a quarter of them were actually under 11 years old. And about 70% of those were first contacted either on Snapchat, Facebook or Instagram. So it's a huge, huge thing.
So there is your answer. It is something. If you are a parent, you need to be watching this video, because we are now going to start talking about what you can do, what the signs to look out for. It's really worried me talking to Tony, because obviously I've got 3 kids, 13, 11 and 8. Social media worries me so much, even though I'm really active on Instagram and Facebook and here on YouTube. Obviously it's something that petrifies me, because I know that it is a dangerous place. There's a lot of goodness out there, and Diggory's just learned to do a double backflip thanks to thanks to Instagram and YouTube. But I also know it's a really dangerous place, and it's a place where you can be contacted by anybody. So this whole grooming process that you've just been talking about is something that we really do need to hear about. How our children, your children, my children, our children's friends are being contacted, because unless we raise awareness of what's going on out there, then we can't help stop this and do something about it. So Tony, what things do we need to be looking out for the parents that are watching this video? What do we look out for?
Yeah, from a parent's perspective, I'd probably start with thinking of the world as it is now as online and offline. Okay, so in reality, what we'd normally tell our kids offline in the real world is don't talk to strangers. If you don't know that person, you know, that sort of advice that we give our kids. Then online, there's kids and us as adults, when we're on there as well with social media, we just sort of put our lives on there. And we feel that there's a layer of anonymity, or people don't know us, etc. We can put what we want and these sort of things. Well, actually what we're doing is leaving what we call a digital footprint of ourselves. So what traffickers or online groomers may do if they're recruiting young children online is they will initiate contact by first setting up a fake profile. So they may use an image of a younger boy or a girl. That might be the age of the preference age that they're trying to contact. So that profile is right, that photograph isn't that person. And they will try and probably have a look through the victim's profile, first, to see, they like, they have such and such a hobby, or they like doing this, or they dislike that. Things that we put online, or they go to this cafe, or things like this. So it gives them a way in to initiate contact, so they can say, I know your cousin, whoever it may be, because you can see it online. And that's a way in. Another way in that we see a lot, particularly with elder men and younger girls, is what we call a lover boy thing. So basically what they'll do, they'll send a message or similar. We also see it the other way around of genders as well, is that, you're attractive, but they'll use other terms like you're fit, or you're whatever that the kids are using. And that, for particularly young kids, or just starting their teens and becoming young adults, is a big pull in. So they accept these things. And then the conversation starts. The first stage is normally sort of making contact. Then they sort of start to look at building trust and rapport. And then it gets eventually to the stage where what they'll do is move them away from the normal social media platforms onto other platforms where there's less due diligence made by those who own the platform. So what I mean by that is they might move them onto WhatsApp or mobile phone, so no one else can see what the conversations are. And then eventually, normally what we see is that they will ask for an intimate image of that person. So to send a photograph of either a young boy or girl, either naked or wearing very little clothing. And at that point, the trafficker or the groomer has them, because then they can blackmail that young adult, that child, into doing what they want, with threats of, if you don't do what we want, then we will put all your images out on social media, which will embarrass with your friends and your family. And this is a huge impact on that child. Often what we see is that they feel very isolated and afraid. So they don't want to tell anyone because they're embarrassed. They certainly don't want to tell their parents because they feel ashamed. Exactly. So that's the process that we normally see. Yeah.
So really, it's quite a long process. And I think so often, certainly as a parent, you worry about, you know that the big problem comes when somebody's asking your kids for naked pictures. That's problem point. Well, it's not. It's, having spoken to you this morning, it's so much earlier on than that, because there will be a relationship formed to start off with. And that's what, as parents and kids as well, so if you're watching this and you're a teen, I've had people contact me a lot, and they've not been the person that they're saying they are online. I've had messages, I've even had photographs, I've had completely fake profiles set up, and it's so easy to do. All you've got to do is set up a new iCloud email address, and then you can set up as many Instagram accounts as you like. It's too easy to set up a fake account. So easy. So if you're watching this, the things to be looking out for is somebody who is forging a friendship with you and you have never met them. Because there will come a point when they do want to meet you. There will come a point when they do ask you for that photograph, and because you think you know them, along with that is going to come a lot of different things. I know I've done things before because I felt too guilty to say no. I really struggle with saying no to anybody for anything, so I'm a great person to ask if you need a hand moving house, because I can't say no. But generally, you know, by the time you've forged a friendship with somebody and they ask you to do something for them, it's very, very difficult. You can feel like you're letting them down by saying no. You can feel like you're not being nice by saying no. And once again, it comes back to the most important thing of all, which is that your body is your body, and you don't ever have to share it with anybody. Nobody should be allowed to touch your body without your consent. Nobody should be able to see it or ask you for pictures of it. And you just need to be so, so careful about who you are interacting with online, because they're not always who they seem. It's something that we really need to be vigilant about. So tell us a little bit more. What can we do if we think that maybe something isn't quite right, or that we have been contacted by somebody that's perhaps grooming our children or us? Then who do we contact and what do we do about it, Tony?
I'd probably look at it in two ways. The first one would probably be prevention. So I think by having just an honest conversation with with your kids as well, and just saying, you know, please don't share your personal information online. If someone asks for an intimate image, please don't send one. Okay, come and tell me. You know, but if you have done, please don't be worried. Please don't be scared or feel ashamed. Please talk to either a parent, a friend, a teacher about what's going on. Don't feel that you're to blame, because you're not. And just encouraging, you know, your child to be comfortable in talking about these things to you. If you really do believe that your child is being groomed or has been, then I would certainly advocate calling the police. So if it's a non-emergency, it'll be police on 101. Otherwise, there's Crime Stoppers if you want to report something anonymously. And there's also a modern slavery helpline. All those telephone numbers are available online, and I think will be available later on as well.
And my personal experience of ever calling any number for help like that, including the police, is that it doesn't matter if you have got it wrong. They would rather that you called in and asked for help and even asked for guidance than didn't call at all. So obviously you're not wasting the emergency services, you're not calling 999, but you can call and chat to the police and talk these things through and say, this is the situation, what do you think? And like you said, the modern slavery helpline, you know, they would rather hear from you than not hear from you. And then obviously it'd be too late, because unfortunately, like Tony said earlier, once they've hooked you in, it's far more difficult to back out and get away from a situation once you've stepped into the danger zone. So those numbers are there for a reason, and there are people there who are waiting for your call and really do want to help. And the only way that we are going to put an end to this and try and protect our young people, try and protect you if you're watching this, then it's by talking about things. And perhaps if you're watching this and you're worried about somebody who's been in contact with you, or worried about something that you've done, some images that you've shared, if you haven't got the kind of relationship with your parent or your parents where you could talk about it, then have a little think about somebody that you can share with. Maybe you've got a teacher that you particularly get on with, or a friend, one of your friends' parents maybe. There are so many people out there who would want to help you through this situation. So it just doesn't matter what you think you might have done wrong. this is not you. You've been lured into a situation and you need to try and get some help here, you know, because there are things that can be done about it. And you should not feel guilty at all if you've perhaps been interacting with somebody for a while and suddenly worked out that perhaps it's not what it seems. So please don't feel ashamed of anything that you've done.
If you are a parent, teacher, governor, or just anyone who has access to those at school who might be happy for us to come along and talk to the kids, then great, please let us know. I'm also looking to bring in people to train as well, to deliver these training courses in other schools and across the country, hopefully, to try and really raise awareness and help sort of protect the kids online. So anything like that, please get in contact, would be great.
Absolutely. So that's Illustro Consultancy. Make sure that you do look them up, and like Tony said, just perhaps go to your teachers. Certainly if you're a parent and this video has concerned you, I'd imagine it's probably shocked you, the statistics and perhaps some of the information that you've listened to. So please do make teachers, head teachers, aware of this training that's out there for kids. It's so easy to get into conversations, and especially WhatsApp groups as well, and Snapchat, where there are lots of people and perhaps you might not know every single person in the group.
Yeah, very much so.
It might even be a situation where you haven't questioned somebody, a silent person in a group, or even somebody who's interacting, and who they are and whose friend they are and how they've managed to be where they are. So raising awareness on these things is extremely important, because there are a lot of dangers out there.
Yeah, that's it. And you really raise a good point as well about not knowing necessarily who our kids are talking to, but also social media and the internet changes so quickly.
Yeah.
So the social media platforms that you or I may know,
Yeah.
a lot of the kids will know them, but that's boring and old stuff now. They're on new things, and so it's about trying to keep up.
What you mean,
with it.
Tony? I'm well up with the times.
Well, maybe I'm just talking about myself here, but it moves so quickly. So I think it's we have to sort of keep updated our own learning as well, in order to know what the kids are using.
Yeah.
So.
But as ever, on every single one of my videos, with any issues with kids, communication with your kids is key. And I know I panic about it all the time, that, maybe I've been chatting too much to one kid and the other kids perhaps not opening up about things that are going on. But, having done chats about bullying and chats about sexual abuse and lots of kind of really tough subjects, every single time it comes back to having the most open conversations with your kids and keeping communication open as much as possible. And even when they've done something that perhaps does disappoint you or upset you, not making them feel so bad that they couldn't come to you with that information. It's a really, really tricky balance, and I find it so hard when you feel cross about something they've done wrong. Obviously you need to tell them that's not a great thing to do, but at the same time it's so important that you don't, close down those open lines of communication. Please do chat to your kids, and kids, chat to your parents, if not them, a teacher, or make a phone call, 101 for the police, and obviously Crime Stoppers and the Modern Slavery Helpline.
Yep,
there we go. That'll be the word I'm looking for. Take care, and thank you so much, Tony, for sharing with us.